After years of research, hundreds of patients, and two pivotal phase 3 trials, Praxis Precision Medicine is now approaching one of the biggest milestones in its history, an FDA decision that could also bring new treatment options to millions of Americans that are living with essential tremor.
Let's start with the basics. What even is essential tremor?
Essential tremor is a brain disorder that causes uncontrollable shaking whenever you try to use your hands, head, or even talk. It can hit at any age, but typically waits to start until after 40 years old. Relatively common, it's over 7 million Americans affected, and it can progress to be completely devastating to their independence.
It's always good to start with knowing what treatment options are currently available for patients with essential tremor. Also, even more importantly, how effective are they?
Taylor Swift has made millions with her hit song Shake It Off, but believe me, millions of people with essential tremor wish they had better treatment options so they could actually stop shaking. Usually, first line is either a blood pressure medication called Propranolol or an anti-seizure medication called Primidone. Both can work to reduce the shaking symptoms, but they have limited benefit because of their side effects. Typically, patients have to decide, is the shaking improvement good enough for me to put up with all these general side effects that my medication is causing?
Tell me more about propranolol.
Propranolol is a blood pressure medication that can cause low blood pressure. It slows the heart rate and it can reduce cardio output, which of course leads to fatigue and exercise intolerance. This is especially bad for those who want to stay active, which really everybody's goal should be to stay active.
Tell me more about Primidone.
Primidone is an anti-seizure medication. This can cause slowed thinking, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, dizziness, imbalance, and nausea. The second-line medications, unfortunately, are not much better, with anti-seizures like Topamax. Yes, there is an appropriate nickname for this med called Dopamax for the obvious reasons of the slowed thinking concentration. Another common second line is gabapentin, which also, unfortunately, has similar cognitive and fatigue side effects.
So tell me, what's so special about Praxis's Ulixacaltamide?
It's exciting since, if approved, it would be the first new essential tremor treatment in many decades. With all the side effects that neurology medicines often have, it's certainly good to have other options. Again, it would be first in its class. Unlike typical old-school first-line agents, which act widespread like Primidone or Propranolol, it's designed to be more selective, with a focused area of electrical activity reduction on T-type calcium channels, in the abnormal burst firing within typically the cerebellothalamal cortical circuit that's believed to be the origin of the tremors.
It seems like a lot of neurology medications have side effects. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Unfortunately, with medications, there never seems to be a free lunch, meaning that there's always some side effects with any medications. But hopefully, the set of side effects are more tolerable. Regardless, having another option for patients is always nice, since they can try for themselves to see if the improvement in their symptoms offsets any of the side effects of the medication.
Speaking of side effects, how did it do in clinical 3 trials?
Praxis conducted 2 different clinical 3 trials. Study 1 was with 473 patients after 8 weeks, which showed significant improvement in what's called a modified 11-item activities of daily living score. From the placebo, it showed a 2.6-point difference between the medication and placebo groups.
That sounds like significant improvement. Tell me about the side effects.
Although targeting more specific channels, the study did still show 36% of patients stopping treatment for treatment-emergent adverse effects, with the most common being dizziness and brain fog, versus the 6% of patients that stopped in the placebo group. However, the good news was there's no reported serious adverse events linked to the medication. One thing to note is that with any neurological medication, it's not uncommon to have side effect profile associated with the meds. The key here is that the side effects were mild. Also, very important is that there are no serious adverse events, which by FDA definitions are things like death, life-threatening risk of dying, hospitalizations, or disabilities.
Can you talk about the second clinical 3 trial they did?
In a separate clinical 3 trial, which they called Study 2, it was a withdrawal study, where the medication is stopped in 40 patients after 8 weeks, to see how it compares to a group of 40 patients that continue along with the medication for another 4 weeks. This withdrawing or stopping medication study is common with neurological med trials.
How strong was the data from this study too?
The data from this study 2 was a bit more nuanced. First of all, the top-line data that was released did not define what maintain response means. From the study's definition, it just met statistical significance with a p-value of 0.0369. So after 8 weeks of treatment, one group that continued med for another 4 weeks versus the comparison group that stopped the med for 4 weeks, it showed 55% maintained response with being on the med versus the stopped group, 33% maintained a response.
I am curious about the modified 11-item Activities of Daily and Living score test that was used on the clinical 3 studies. What things and categories are asked as the patients in the trials?
That test specifically asks how much the essential tremor shaking interferes with 11 tasks: speaking, feeding with a spoon, drinking from a glass, hygiene like shaving or brushing your teeth, dressing like attaching a button or tying your shoe, pouring liquids, carrying food, writing, working like your job functions, using keys to doors, and in your overall disability.
How do you take the medication?
Currently, Ulixacaltamide is an oral daily tablet. It's a small molecule that's designed to cross the blood-brain barrier. Interestingly, Praxis did recently announce in July of 2026 that they're in agreement with a company, Reimagine Labs, to develop a transdermal delivery system. Transdermal versions versus oral, of course, provide an easier administration for some patients with potential steadier drug levels and the possibility of fewer peak-related side effects.
When is the FDA decision expected?
The expected FDA decision on Ulixacaltamide is January of 2027, which might add the first new essential tremor medication in decades, potentially joining first-line medications Propranolol and Primidone. I know I'll be closely watching Praxis and their pending FDA new drug submission outcome. Be sure to watch along with us on BioTech Swimmer by liking and subscribing.